I have not yet gotten to review two recent films from Oscar winner and then laughingstock Nicolas Cage, Willy's Wonderland and Pig. So we're going to do that right now. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to spoiler-free reviews for two recent Nicolas Cage films, Willy's Wonderland and Pig. You know, just trying to wrap up my 2021 movie reviews, and these two I had not gotten to see until this week. Figure we're going to lump them together because, of course, they both star Nicolas Cage. He won an Oscar for Leaving Las Vegas, and then in the last 15 years or so became kind of a punching bag because he took on these really bizarre roles and over the top and all this stuff. But I think we all know that the man can act, and he's proven that, you know, every few years will come out with something that's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And so how do these ones fare? Well, before we dive into Willy's Wonderland and Pig, I do want to welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video, and hopefully you enjoy it. If you do, please consider subscribing down below there. Would love to have you as we reach for 900 subscribers. That's my new milestone here, and we've been very close to it for a few days, so would love to get you on board for that. So let's talk Willy's Wonderland first. That came out earlier in the year for 2021, and these are both very interesting movies and interesting roles for Nicolas Cage. So in this one, it's basically sort of like a Five Nights at Freddy's kind of riff, if you are familiar with that video game. But Nicolas Cage plays this drifter who ends up kind of being tricked into cleaning this abandoned family entertainment center, like a Chuck E. Cheese kind of thing, which is haunted by 8 murderous animatronic characters. And then there's a small cast here of teenagers who realize this and are trying to, you know, break in and sort of save him. And they're played by Amy Tosta, Rick Reitz, Chris Warner. I mean, people I'm not familiar with. But then there are 2 deputies that are also sort of on the case trying to figure out what's going on. That's Beth Grant and David Sheftel. So we've seen them probably in a few things. But this movie, Nicolas Cage does not speak at all. He doesn't have any lines. And that is pretty interesting because we're used to sort of, you know, when you think about the Nick Cage memes, it's him, you know, doing this over-the-top screaming or being over-the-top. I've always maintained, before I go into both of these reviews, I've always maintained that Nicolas Cage is a really solid actor when he is doing drama, and actually, surprisingly, when he's doing comedy. His action movies is where he really went off the rails. And just, you know, everything was so over the top. Everything is, you know, meme-worthy. But, you know, things like, I never saw Leaving Las Vegas, but things like, you know, The Family Man, or Honeymoon in Vegas, which is a comedy, or Raising Arizona, which is a comedy, or this movie Joe from maybe 5 years ago, which was a drama. He's really adept at all of that stuff. So I never necessarily doubt that he's a good actor, but he just leans in so hard to these dime a dozen action movies that everybody writes him off. And I think these two movies may prove to people or remind people that, no, he really can act. And it takes, you know, a little bit of acting talent for sure to pull off an entire feature film where you don't say a word, but yet your character is very well defined. You know, everybody watching this movie, I think, understands, okay, this is who this dude is. Now, there's a big mystery surrounding him. We don't necessarily know where he came from, what his deal is, what his story is. But because this movie acts as a Five Nights at Freddy's sort of riff, it has a lot of these video game tropes. For example, you know, the main character doesn't speak in a lot of video games because theoretically the main character is you. So, you know, you sort of put your own dialogue in as you're playing the game. I'm not a huge gamer, but, you know, I certainly know some things. And another thing I noticed with this movie is he drinks these energy drinks and then plays pinball. He needs to, like, repower himself, basically, and it acts as, like, a power-up, and then he goes, you know, back and starts kicking butt. He also has this insane, he's insanely good at cleaning. he gets all this graffiti off, and he makes this place sparkle like nobody ever could. This movie is funny. The most talking, I think, in this film is from the animatronic characters, sort of taunting Nick Cage and the teenagers. So that those parts are comedic. And there's a bit of a horror element for sure to it. It's kind of in the slasher film vein where the animatronic characters are trying to kill everybody. This movie is many things, but through it all, Nick Cage sort of keeps this very cool, steady hand. And if you're in a video game, that's you. Like, that's what you want to emulate, at least for me. So I think that worked very well. It's honestly a very clever movie that I didn't quite expect. When I first heard it, and part of the reason I guess I didn't watch it last year is I had heard about it and I thought, well, that sounds stupid, like another Nick Cage, laughable moment. But then I kept hearing people say, oh, no, it's actually pretty good. Oh, you should check this out. And then by that point, it was like 5-6 months out. So I'm like, well, I'll just wait till I sort of do my 2021 wrap up and watch it then. Because I had also been hearing at that time about Pig, which we're going to get into in a moment, which some people are saying could be Oscar worthy. So yeah, but no, I really thought this film was well done. It definitely, I love a horror comedy, Scream, Cabin in the Woods, I think there is something to that element of humor in your horror movies. Some of the Fear Street stuff last year on Netflix I enjoyed. So I think this is a really good junk food popcorn movie, but make no mistake, it is not a Nick Cage lazy, let's make some money for my castle payments kind of movie. This is a real deal, solid performance in a very interesting movie. So I got to give it to this movie. It was directed, by the way, by Kevin Lewis, who I'm not familiar with. I believe this is his first directing effort, and I think he did a good job. And he did something else that I liked, and not put in like Scott Pilgrim-esque sort of animated words and stuff on the screen, like pow, and that kind of stuff that you might associate with video games. I think he let the subtlety speak for itself, and I think if he had done it in a more corny way, because certainly there's a corny way very easily to do, Chuck E. Cheese type characters. He didn't lean into that really at all, and I really, really appreciated that. So this movie for me, it was very good. I give Willy's Wonderland a B+. So next we're going to talk about Pig, and like I said, this has been getting some sort of Oscar buzz a little bit. I think everybody sort of agrees that it will not get nominated for any Oscars, but partially because it's Nick Cage and the Oscars have sort of turned their back on him. They do love a comeback story, so I guess you never know. And I think those nominees are going to be coming out in a couple of weeks. But in any event, maybe in another actor's hands, this would be Oscar nominated because it has a lot of the things that the Academy loves. It's definitely got a dramatic story. It is a dark tale, if you will, about a man that we sort of sympathize with. So in any event, this one is another one that doesn't have a huge cast, but a few names you may know: Alex Wolff and Adam Arkin. But Nick Cage plays this dude, Rob Field, who is a truffle hunter. He, sort of lives deep in the woods and does his truffle hunting and sells them to this kid played by Alex Wolff. I say kid, but I don't know, Alex Wolff is probably 25 by now, but to Nick Cage, certainly he's a kid, and he's sort of new on the scene, so he's sort of just getting his feet wet in this. It's never really explored, I don't think, how they sort of discovered each other, but in any event, early in the movie, in fact, maybe in the first scene, the truffle pig is stolen. So Rob basically goes on a rampage to try and find his pig, try and get his love back. And we learn more about the character as we go. We certainly know more about this character than we do about his Willy's Wonderland drifter. And he speaks in this movie, but, only when he needs to. And there are a couple of scenes in which he loses his temper at someone, and yet you never get that Nick Cage is going over the top feel, because they wait until about 45 minutes, an hour into the movie for Nick Cage to really start losing it on people. And by then we know this character, we like this character, so I think that really helps the journey as well. And this one was directed by, I think, maybe another first timer, Michael Sarnowski, who also wrote the screenplay. Not familiar with him at all. But I do have a couple of minor complaints about this movie, but they are very, very minor, and they don't really affect the grade too much. But this movie does sort of act as a vignette of him sort of going from place to place with no I don't know. No, I mean, the through line is I want my pig, but we sort of get the pieces of his personality as we go on. But like there's an early Fight Club type situation that I'm not sure if that necessarily needed to be there. It was sort of like, it sort of seemed dropped in. But I will say, again, none of that actually really affects my grade that much, because it's a very high grade for this movie. I just felt maybe that could have pushed it that extra step. But Cage, again, here is fantastic. And I just recently reviewed that Denzel Washington movie, Tragedy Macbeth. I said, I didn't think Denzel was all that good in it, to be honest, which is surprising. Denzel's usually great. But for me, this could be a top 5 male performance of the year. Certainly, you've got Andrew Garfield to contend with, Will Smith and King Richard, and a couple of others, probably Benedict Cumberbatch and Power of the Dog. But this, for me, is easily in contention, should be, for Best Actor. I think Nicolas Cage gives maybe a career best here. Again, I've never seen Leaving Las Vegas. We know that is what he won his Oscar for. Always seemed a bit too depressing for me, and I was a kid, I was like 19 when that came out, so I was like, I don't really want to see that. If it came out now, I would watch it, of course, but in any event, this, for me, is probably the best Nick Cage performance I've ever seen. Which is saying something, because I do rag on him a lot, like many people. But, at the end of the day, like I said, he really can act very, very well. I think sometimes he chooses not to. And these two movies make me wonder, how in on the joke is he? I know he went on SNL and sat next to Andy Samberg when Samberg was doing his Cage impression. I think we don't give Nick Cage enough credit for kind of being in on the joke sometimes. So I think when he wants to sort of restrain it and give us a solidly dramatic performance, he is able to do that, because he's still got it in it. And both of these movies, in slightly different ways, represent that. So at the end of the day, this is really a great film. I give Pig an A. It is, it's heart-wrenching, and it is very dramatic, and Cage, it just knocks it out of the park. He does. So I got to give it to him. All right, so that's it. Pretty short and sweet, I think, for both of these movies, as my 2021 wrap-ups will tend to be, because, of course, a lot of these movies are a little bit older, so we don't need to spend, 12 minutes dissecting each one. But 12 minutes for 2, well, that works, right? Or 13 minutes. So thank you for watching, and look for my other 2021 wrap-up videos. There's going to be a lot of them coming out in the next few weeks, couple of months, up until really Oscar night at the end of March, because I will be catching up on a lot of those 2021 movies I've missed or just not gotten to review yet. So, all right, we'll talk to everybody soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.